It's good. I second this. All right, good stuff. All right, thank you for tuning in to the first of only one VGC podcast. Woo! I want to thank our wonderful guests. You guys want to introduce yourselves real quick so everybody in the chat knows who you are? Starting with Enosh again. Let's go clockwise.
Whoops. I didn't realize that was starting. I'm Enosh. I've been playing since 2010. I've gotten second at U.S. Nationals in 2013. You might have seen me knock out my own Obama Snow. I've been memeing it up with Alex for years. He's great. We have a nice photo of us from DC in 2014. I think that sums it all up.
Oh yeah, we do, dude. That's a good call. All right,
Jonathan Evans. I'm Jonathan Evans. I'm pretty good at Pokemon, but you probably, if you've heard of me, it's from me doing something that I probably shouldn't have in top 8 at World.
The original hype beast.
You can go find videos about it. Some people are very angry, but I'm just excited to talk about Pokemon.
Dude, I was so on your side when that happened, but I think I was the only one. I was like, yeah. And then everybody was great. Freaking out. I was like, oh, maybe not. All right, next, go James.
Who are you? Do I really need an introduction? But no. James here, pro player for Beast Coast currently. I got 3rd place at Worlds last year, the first international winner for the season, and I make content on YouTube and Twitch.
Oh, yeah, ChuppaCross. I've cut regionals a few times. I don't know. Been playing for a long time. Might be playing for another long time. I'm here.
Commonly mistaken with the Pro Smash player, Chups. Said one guy.
Players being made up.
Said one guy in the chat, dude. All right, and if you guys are here, then you know who I am, so that's fine. We're basically here, guys, in case you didn't catch it, to talk about the introduction of Pokemon Home and how we think it's going to influence VGC metagame, basically what our thoughts are, because there's a lot of, I can't tell you how many times people are like, hey man, is Incineroar the new Arcanine? And then it's okay, and I tell them, and then the next guy comes into the chat. It's literally as I'm explaining that last question, and he asked the same question, and it just kind of, everybody, if you're on the VGC Reddit, you're on Twitter, everybody's goddamn asked the same question, and it's become a mess. So we're gonna settle it once and for all here with our huge level of expertise here in the chat. Okay, so first of all, yeah, thank you to everybody being here. Those were our nice self-introductions. I'd like to, before we get into how Home is going to influence the metagame, I want to talk about what we think about the current metagame, what we think about Dynamax, and what we think about, Gmax as a whole, maybe the mechanic as a whole, and if we think where we're at currently is healthier than maybe some of the more previous formats and stuff. So if anybody feels strongly on how they feel the current metagame is, please say something.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. I'm not a big fan of this format. I think 2020 is probably one of the worst I played competitively. I think that one of the big reasons is I do think Dynamax is a pretty unhealthy mechanic. I think double in HP combined with having max moves that were as strong as Z moves, as well as the fact that both Pokemon on the field are affected by its stat increases or stat drops is pretty insane. And I don't really like a mechanic that usually the way you beat it commonly is to use a mechanic against your opponent as a counter option. So using Dynamax, your opponent Dynamaxes and your counter plays to usually Dynamax, and it can be really oppressive. Also, the fact that we don't have really great ways to deal with statuses like Fast Sleep Powder, which is pretty strong, especially with something that got introduced that we'll be talking about later. I think sleep is pretty big and it's pretty oppressive, especially with the terrains, no tapus, so we're forced to use Pokemon that we really don't want to, and Weezing and Pincurchin and or Safeguard Whimsicott, and that just really limits ways you can counter it.
Okay, if anybody, do you guys agree or disagree with that? What do you guys think?
I agree. Yet, want to go mention some other things. Doubles OU is fantastic. The VGC's issues, Dynamax kind of goes over.
So wait, what are the difference between what's the main mechanic difference?
So let me comment on this as arguably the best doubles OU player in the world. Right now.
Yes. Huge.
No, actually, I'm 6-0 in SPL.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, dude, my win record over the past 3 team tournaments is 19-4.
That's disgusting, actually.
It's really good. I'm very good at doubles OU. The thing about doubles OU is you can actually Dynamax second effectively, and it's not too punishing to do so. So in VGC, it feels like one of the things you have to do is, in order to deal with early Dynamaxes, you have to respond by Dynamaxing early. You can't, take the hit, get a position, lower your opponent's resources, and then, build up a comeback as effectively as I'd like. Because it feels like, the Dynamax just kind of runs through you too fast with all the stat boosts and stat drops. In Doubles OU, you have more switches, so you can, switch in more Pokemon to take attacks, and if your Pokemon take damage, it's less problematic. There are overall more turns of the game, so the Dynamax is less of a fraction of the game that happens. And then you can respond, later game if you want to with your Dynamax, or you can just Dynamax to cancel out, but then you get a lot of normal Pokemon.
So for people who aren't familiar with Doubles OU at all, the difference is the amount of the Pokemon pool. Can you use just everything, or is there something different between the two?
It's 6v6 doubles. Most of the Pokemon, so your mythicals are allowed. So Mew was legal. Going in before home, it was basically the same as VGC. I think the only difference was Mew. But there were different sets that were good because of the different pace of the game. After Pokemon Home has been released, there are a bunch of new Pokemon legal. You can use Keldeo now, you can use Melmetal, you can use a bunch of old sets on Pokemon, because you don't have to have the Galar mark. So you can use Fake Out Follow Me Blastoise, which it gets both now because of the new breeding mechanics, because Follow Me is like a, what is it?
A Coliseum.
From Coliseum.
Gen 5. No, Gen 5.
And a bunch of Pokemon get toxic. So it's a little bit more different from VGC now, but it's still quite similar bandlist wise.
So you think it's healthier in that format because you have a greater variety of switches that you can use to absorb the damage impact? Is that basically what you were saying?
The games take a little bit longer, so 3 turns is less impactful.
Right, and so, but do you think it's overall? So then, if I had to ask you, is it overall healthy in that format? Because if you feel like it's not healthy in VGC, is that enough of a big enough difference?
Yeah. So I think it's healthy, but only because Smogon moderates its formats well. So one thing that's just been introduced into the format is Terrakion, and I have a very strong feeling that Terracotta with Beat Up is going to be broken, because in Doubles OU you have 6 Mons, so Beat Up gets your Terrakion to +6, and then it Dynamaxes, and then it just kills everything. Jesus. And then you Tailwind, you get the new speed mechanics. The reason Beat Up's not that good in VGC right now, and so I think this will be a massive problem in VGC when Terrakion is released, if that happens this year or next year. But the reason Beat Up's not good right now is because Arcanine sucks. Arcanine's just really bad as a...
It does not have enough damage.
It just doesn't do enough. But Terrakion kills Togekiss. Terrakion destroys Togekiss, and it does good things on its own. So I'm worried about Beat Up, and I think the format, could develop to be Cancer if it was handled in the way TPCI handles VGC.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to spend too long here, and I do want to get Mr. Chup's ideas, but do you guys think that, because we didn't talk about different Dynamax moves having secondary abilities, some of them are so much clearly better than others, is that a big part of it? And do you think it's a big part that they allowed items, except for the choice items, to work on Dynamax Pokemon? All of a sudden having double HP and a weakness policy is so much incredibly stronger than not having double HP in the weakness policy. Do you think either of those would have helped mitigate maybe some of the problems we're feeling in the current in VGC itself?
I mean, if we're talking about items and really strong moves, I think we have to talk about Togekiss first. It gets to use Super Lux Scope Lens and have half crit rate that kind of lets it cheese out things like Snarl and Light Screen. And Airstream is also just the best regular max move. I don't really care to think about Gigantamax moves here, but Airstream is so much better than all the others just because speed is crazy. I guess the only saving grace is that it doesn't have amazing distribution because Aerial Ace isn't a TM anymore, but Airstream in particular is really crazy. It leads to this thing where let's say you want to Airstream first, your opponent kind of has to do the same thing, or else one of you guys is just going to end up faster than the other, and whoever Dynamax second is now going to have a really hard time coming back. Airstream's pretty crazy.
this format, kind of how it started off, I kind of called it, hey, it's balanced Hackmons. Like, why does everything do so much damage, get all these moves? Doesn't make any sense, but it's kind of fun. Like, now Dynamax, it's still fun, but on the other hand, you know, it's a mechanic that's really tough to figure out how you can play around it, and when you have the advantage, it's kind of weird because, like, they don't have anything they could do sometimes. Like, I've seen a lot of Rotom Wash just use up a Nasty Plot, or Dynamax use Dark Pulse, or Max Darkness, and it's kind of ridiculous. It's really fun, but, like, only when you do it.
It feels like, to its credit a little bit, like it does make if you had a same matchup against somebody multiple times, like each game can feel a little bit more varied due to which one you're Dynamaxing, right? But I think, like, I personally had like a big issue with I think we mentioned only being able to absorb it with 4 Pokemon. Like, if you're not able to match that aggression immediately, or if you miscall that they're going to Dynamax, it's like all of a sudden you're so far behind, you like can't really make that comeback because the switching kind of synergy and stuff of your team kind of just goes to shit because you got hit by something too strong you weren't expecting, or the crit kiss, for example, you try to set up a light screen or snarl it, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter, and now your Arcanine's done, and it's like, okay, now his whole team's boosted, and it's like, what do I do? So I'm on the same page as most people here, but I'm glad we all think. I mean, like, it would be cool if someone was like, I love it, but, I think for the most part...
I think Doubles Are You is hella fun. I haven't played, like, a ton of VGC, but I have a ton of opinions about it anyway.
Okay. All right, so
Incineroar.
I like VGC as is. It's not perfect.
No, would it be perfect without... Or would it be close to perfect without the Dynamax thing, or is there another underlying issue here?
Pokemon's Pokemon. I still enjoy Pokemon.
If we didn't have Dynamax, the format would be so completely different that it's hard for me to make any effective comment on it. Like none of the good sets would be good anymore. Rhyperior probably wouldn't be that good, which like very much changes the dynamic of Trick Room. Charizard wouldn't be worth using, or maybe it would be, who knows. But like everything would be completely different, and I think it's It's fun to think about, but I think it would require a lot more experience with that format than we have at our disposal.
Right, kind of hard to just, I guess what it would be like right from here. So that's good. That's a good recap of basically where we're at. Now, the big news and the reason basically we're here, March is introducing, well, I guess they already introduced Pokemon Home. The Pokemon coming from Pokemon Home, they can have a variety of hidden abilities and stuff. Thoughts on Pokemon Home itself? Did you guys because we had Pokemon Bank on the DS, right, or whatever? It was like $4.99 a year, whatever. You could transfer your Pokemon up. Are you glad that they waited this long to make this kind of a feature? Do you think that it's do you think like the price point is even healthy? And I don't know if any of you guys even have it. Like, what are your just really quick thoughts on, if you have thoughts on Pokemon Home itself?
What was the price point for Pokemon Home?
It's $16.99. I think, right, per year?
16 yearly, I think.
I think it's 16, and someone in chat can fact check me if they want, but I'm pretty sure it's close to that.
I mean, so my thought on Home is, just as a general matter, I didn't transfer my Pokemon up from previous games because I liked having them where they were. I played through Ruby with my friends, and my friends stay in Ruby. That's where they belong. If I ever want to pick up Ruby again, my friends are all there. I know a few people who, transferred all their Pokemon out of their games, and it's like, well, I can't go play my old game with my old Pokemon anymore because they're in my new game. It's nice to be able to play with the Pokemon you had before, but it feels kind of nice to have them stay where they were and make sure that you can, go experience those games again if you want to.
The only times I've ever transferred Pokemon myself, like John, was like, hey, I have an actual competitive thing that I need them for. Otherwise, they stayed where they were. But like, I enjoy Pokemon Home just as a thing. I love how like my friends are now able to clear their boxes quickly. I think that it's a mechanic that should have been in the main game. But overall, I think that transferring Pokemon over slowly, I love that. I like the fact that we didn't have the full Pokedex at first. And I like that we still don't have the full Pokedex because the region should kind of like be special, and I love just like getting that whole experience, so that was cool.
All right, perfect. Unless James, you have something you really want to say. That's pretty good because I want to talk about some of these hidden abilities that are coming into the game. I have a little graphic here.
I think it was like a cool idea. It had some stuff, like some features like mass release, which is pretty useful for people who do a bunch of raids. Personally, I just don't transfer Pokemon because like sometimes I'll play in old formats against friends and we use our teams from the DS. So like, yeah, so it doesn't really impact me, but it's all right. It has some bugs that I wish they would fix for other players, but otherwise I think it's fun. And
you think the price point is, you guys think the price point's about right? Do you feel like it's almost, did you expect it closer to Pokemon Bank because we had Pokemon Bank before and now all of a sudden it's like, well, you need Nintendo Online, you need a Switch game, now you need Pokemon, Home, now you need the expansion pass. Do you think it's still, do you think that's fine though? Because someone in chat thinks it's really,
yeah.
You don't need expansion pass. They actually have like a free update, so you can still get those Pokemon from trade and stuff. So I don't think that's such a big deal. It is getting a bit more pricier, but that's pretty much games in general, I think. So I think it's all right for the price point. I think they could have done it lower, but not much to complain about, I think.
Yeah, same boat. It's like we're already paying for Nintendo Switch Online, but the thing is, most of us are paying for that anyway to do something like Smash Online or Queen Black.
Oh, yeah.
from the Smash player, of course.
Chuppa, how much do you spend on your Smash Online? Because whenever I play you give it to me for free.
John, we've never played Smash Online.
Okay, let's
Sorry, man, it was just for the punchline. It was just
let's talk about some of these. Let's talk about some of these Pokemon that you guys think might not be complete garbage that are coming in with these hidden abilities. Because I got a list here. This is from.
Could you post the infographic in the Discord?
Yeah, of course.
I don't.
This is from VGC. Wait, hold on. Can I do this?
I can do it. I have the link.
Oh, you can post it. Thanks. If I close the thing, then all your webcams are gonna go to shit. This is from VGC Stats on Twitter. Let me give him his due text. It's like our hidden
VGC
sixth
Stats?
number. It's from VGC Stats. Yeah. Let's see. And so he put this nice little graphic together.
Yeah, there's no egg moves if I remember right that's specific about this, and I think there are like maybe like I think I could pick out maybe 5 Pokemon that could potentially be impact, but otherwise most of them probably won't be used.
So out of those 5, are we talking Friend Guard, Clefairy? Do you think that's going to be useful?
Yeah, I think Friend Guard is always good. Of course, Duraludon is still a powerful threat, but at least Friend Guard helps. So even if it ignores the redirection, like at least you're still getting the Friend Guard boost regardless, which I think is really nice.
What about some of these prankster? Oh, go on.
Oh yeah, I think the cool thing about Friend Guard is that Dynamax Pokemon, like especially something like Duraludon, it's so fat that like it's hardly worth your time to attack it, especially when it starts stacking defense boosts or something. If you just use like Friend Guard, protect it next to your opponent can only attack the Duraludon. It's like it's going to do 10% or something crazy like that. Just it kind of just forces your opponent to waste their attacks even harder than they already would. Friend Guard Clefairy is pretty cool.
Do you think it's the strong out of this list here? Do you think it's the strongest introduction that we're seeing? It's clearly not going to be like Rattled Sudowoodo. I mean, I know there's a lot of throwaways here, but I mean, unless you guys have something hidden up your sleeves. But I see a couple prankster users here. I know there was always like a cheese strat with like simple Swoobat or whatever, an extra Lightning Rod or an extra Storm Drain. Those abilities are at least useful even if they're on kind of medium Pokemon. Maybe.
So I'm personally a fan of the prankster abilities. I think that when Incineroar comes out in March, we're going to see some different stuff related to that. But one thing I think this format has really missed is somehow there isn't really that much weather war interaction. Sand seems to just be like the dominant weather. You set up the weather with your max moves. One thing that was popular for a very short time in 2014 was Rain Dance Meowstic. To set up your rain, and it was manual, but it was fast, and so you could get your rain out and start attacking really quickly. It also has Thunder Wave, which is nice because it can stop the Maxmons from dealing damage, and slow them down so you can attack them faster. I think that someone got I think it was Baked VGC, got top 4 in MSS with Meowstic Seismitoad. just, you set up Rain Dance for the Seismitoad, you click, like, Life Orb, Max Geyser in the rain, Swift Swim boosted, does a bunch of damage. So I'm excited to see this. I'm not sure it's good, but I think Soggy Cat could definitely see some use.
Just want to add a few more things. Meowstic Male could be kind of funny. Liepard is like prankster Pokemon. We've talked about it a little bit. And there are also going to be some Alola forms, but those are allowed in March. That's most notably for Persian, which is basically Liepard but without prankster. Instead, you got Fur Coat and like Parting Shot, and you have Ninetales Alolan, which gets to be fast Vanillux with a little bit less damage, but better Aurora Veil and faster than Charizard.
And is there like anything else here that doesn't look like 100% garbage? I guess because I think those are like the ones that I think a lot of people would pick out. I saw one guy on ladder one time using a bear tick with Snowball or something. Like he snowballed it, and then and then he D-maxed it, and it was kind of terrifying. But I feel like most of this, like telepathy on Musharna, that used to be a big deal. It's probably. Do you think it's gonna even be anything anymore? Because that used to be something, right? That used to be a pretty popular Pokemon, relatively so, in its heyday, right? When we first got it, maybe Gen. It was
in 2011. I remember the team. I was using Earthquake Landorus with it. I was doing I think I put Explosion on Landorus just because I had telepathy already. Why not? There was a lot of fun stuff you could do, but telepathy isn't really that good, except on Gardevoir, that 2-year stretch when you could start off with Gardevoir with telepathy and then just drop it and give yourself the better ability of Pixelate.
Trace could definitely backfire back in those days.
Which was hilarious.
You
took Drought instead of keeping your,
The thing about Talap or Trick Room Sweeper, let's say Rhyperior, instead of Earthquake, pretty often it's just going to go for Max Quake, so at that point, Telepathy's not even helping you. It's not a huge buff to Musharna for that reason. I think Unaware Clefable could be pretty cool, just let's say you're really scared of Snorlax or something, you just waste Snorlax's time, make its boost irrelevant. I think that would be kind of cute, but it's mostly outclassed by Little Clef and Togekiss.
I think also one Pokemon that could maybe stand out is competitive female Meowstic. I think it has potential. It's got good coverage, pretty decent speed, and I think it's pretty nice to catch. Competitive Pokemon are probably a bit better. Milotic's a bit better in this generation than others, and that's because max moves, for instance, if they try to do Max Dragon, they get instantly punished. So I think competitive Meowstic is decent. It's not amazing, but I think it could have a role or two.
Competitive is really funny. Did you guys know about the competitive Gothitelle team?
Yeah.
Not the one the guy posted on Reddit.
One.
Which one?
No, the Japanese one, the one that was Gothitelle, Vanillux, and all that.
Oh yeah, I know that team. I thought you were talking about the
that team
other.
Was so funny. No, the competitive Gothitelle Japanese team.
I thought you were talking about the other competitive Gothitelle Japanese team that got top worlds in 2018.
No, I'm talking about the one that's good now, not the one that was good a year that I did.
I have it in my builder. It seems pretty cool.
Do we think that it's a mistake that if you lead into Gothitelle and then you try to switch out your first Pokemon, you can find out immediately if it's competitive or Shadow Tag? You don't have to lock in your first 2 moves?
Yeah, that's always
nice. No one ever does that, though. They always assume they're trapped.
It's if you try to switch out your first, if you don't want to switch it out, it'll tell you if you're trapped right there. That's gotta be... That couldn't have been on purpose, right? Is that has to be...
No, it's supposed to be. You need to find out that way. It has to be. That's how it works.
Was that you never had to lock in both your moves before it was you're trapped?
No.
This was always the mechanic.
Doesn't that seem like a disadvantage to the Gothitelle? I guess maybe because Shadow Tag's so strong anyway.
Yes, good.
Shadow Tag is busted.
All right, so these are
Shadow Tag from the game. This is my
that's everyone's
popular opinion.
So those were basically the shitty ones. Now we have the real juice here, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the official. Let me see. Literally, our information came from a subtweet, right? I have this thing. It's really long. Let me move my head. I'm over here now. Hey, what's up?
It was from a Pokemon Twitter thread where they went and said, "Hey, this is something that no one cares about." And the second tweet there was, "Oh yeah, this is how it's going to be released."
Right. So this is, and I think this is what most people actually want to know, because okay, Friend Guard Clefable, that's cool or whatever. At the end of the day, though, here, I gotta get rid of this VGC strat. Oh god, it's fucked. It's fucked. It's fucked. I got it. Okay. So this is, as far as I can tell, this was the official, so far, our official announcement. I'm sure they will say something as soon as we get maybe closer to March, but it was this 3-part tweet that was, hey, we're updating for March season 3, right? Currently, you can't use the Alolan forms, but on season 3, all available regional forms, and they specify Galarian Slowpoke, because what a beast, what a metagame changer. Then you're gonna get
no, it's actually pretty cool. You can like use weakness policy Torkoal and Trick Room Slowpoke. This was a strat in like previous generations. I think in 2018 you Trick Room with the Slowpoke and then you surf and activate your Torkoal's weakness policy.
And it had to be slow. We have to use Slowpoke for this one.
Yeah, because it understands.
Because it's slower. Because it's slower. You can't.
Yeah. and then you get your Torkoal boosted, and Torkoal underspeeds Rhyperior, so you could max Overgrowth through Rhyperior. Some next level strats, guys. You gotta be thinking.
This is why you're here, man. I don't know what we would have done without that. The hard hitting analysis we needed. Huge moves in Showdown, and now everyone's gonna start running that. So
that's my next team.
Please keep that away from anything I touch. Thank you. So we have the regional forms. We have Bulbasaur and Squirtle, which, is there a specific, besides the fact that we have Charizard, are they just trying to equalize that? And then you have the Gen 7 starters. And then more Gigantamax Pokemon or whatever. TBA. What do we think here? Because obviously Incineroar is the big man on campus, right? Everyone all over the Reddit or whatever, they're like, oh, it's fucked. The metagames, it's over. It's ruined. There's a lot of things that made Incineroar very, very dominant in previous gen that we may not see right now. But before we talk about Incineroar, what about Alolan forms or whatever? Do you think any of these other regional forms? Because I hear you can't do Weezing still, though, right? I heard you can't do Kanto Weezing.
You can't, because you get Weezing in the game, and it's not Galarian Weezing. You get normal Weezing. You get Weezing that just evolves into Galarian Weezing. It's like how you couldn't use normal Raichu when it was always evolving into Alolan Raichu.
I gotcha. So do we think any of those are going to be anything? Is that even, any of them really stick out to anybody here?
Ninetales.
Yep. Now you think once, if we get that Lapras, if we get the G-Max Lapras, do you think that's going to be a big deal? The Aurora Veil with the...
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Lapras, I'll tell you a story about Lapras in a little bit. When we...
Lapras is one of my favorites.
Is it about
right
your
now.
replay, John?
Oh, yes.
Yes, it is. It is his replay.
So,
he doesn't shut up about it.
Yes, I do.
You do.
I actually have the shortest game in SPL history. I beat my opponent in 3 turns. The strategy is you lead is Hitmontop Lapras, and then you Mach Punch your Lapras and activate your weakness policy. And then you have this massive tank, and it sets up a Aurora Veil for itself, and it's +2. And it's really cool because the main form of damage mitigation at the time was Snarl Arcanine. But Snarl Arcanine can't do much to a +2 Lapras, and it just trades off 1 Snarl for its entire health. So
if it hits, you know.
No, max. If the Snarl hits.
If it hits,
but yeah. Hitmontop Lapras was something that was really cool, and I combined it with Whimsicott, which has Fake Tears, so you can also get that extra special attack combination rolling. I really think Lapras will be phenomenal.
Were you Jack Button?
No, I was Citrus Berry. It might not have been.
Okay, so Ninetales maybe. What about Bulbasaur, Squirtle? I know the original, actually, the fact that we're here right now is because I saw what James was talking about Venusaur. So I actually want to throw this one over to you, James, at first. What are your thoughts on the Bulbasaur line or the Squirtle line or both?
Well, the Squirtle line is alright. I mean, Blastoise gets a new tech where it got Shell Smash this generation, which is pretty cool, but I don't think it's going to be super big in VGC because there's a lot of spread moves. Shell Smash, Water Spout, and Rain, if you aren't prepared for it, I guess could be amazing with Rain Dish, but otherwise it gets a few support moves like Haze and stuff, which is always very nice. Fake Out and Yawn as well, but overall I don't think Blastoise is going to be such a big factor, especially since we already got amazing water types like Milotic and Rotom Wash, for instance, as well as Gyarados. Venusaur is probably the biggest concern I think I have for this format. We didn't exactly have the best grass types in this format. Our best grass types
We had
were
grass
like,
types?
There's like
Yeah,
Rosalia.
exactly.
There's that one guy running Rosalia.
Rosary.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh no, there was also a
Rosary
Rosalia
guy.
guy. There's like actually a Rosalia guy. Yeah, dude, it's
Really?
it's actually
What?
really hard to kill. Go on, sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
sidetrack us. It was actually
the
Rosalia. I've seen the
joke was,
Rosary
like-
too, though.
The joke that we used to the joke that we passed around in my friend group is like, oh yeah, Gyarados is the grass type on my team. Or, oh, my grass type is Seismitoadus, Power Whip. The only grass type in the format is really Whimsicott, and Whimsicott doesn't run grass moves that often.
But going on
So,
to
yeah, James,
Venusaur
sorry.
one more time.
all right, so Venusaur, we didn't really
Oh,
have.
who disconnected? They fucked up my thing. Oh no,
John.
no,
Oh, no,
dude, you
John.
ruined it. Okay, it's back. We're back. Keep going.
All right, so our best grass types in the format were like Ferrothorn. Rillaboom doesn't really exist until Hidden Abilities get released because like you don't really want to use Overgrow on that Pokemon, and it doesn't really do much. So we really didn't have any good grass types. But Venusaur, we had Vileplume as probably our best Sun Abuser.
No,
for
Whimsicott
grass
was our
types.
best grass type. It just wasn't
no.
used as a grass type.
No, I was talking about Sun Abusers for that.
Ooh, oops,
tradition.
my
But
bad.
yeah, Whimsicott is probably the best grass type. But even then, it's not even like a defensive grass type. It can't really switch in. It doesn't really it doesn't really Dynamax at all. Like 99.9% of the time, you're not Dynamaxing Whimsicott. So we didn't really have the best grass type. So Venusaur is a Pokemon that doesn't have like the best stats, but like it has pretty good stats overall that are balanced. But it also gets like a bunch of things. One, Chlorophyll Sleep Powder is going to be a thing, and we all know how good sleep is. Like Yawn picked up in this format, because you can shut down like Dynamax Pokemon there, or like stall out a few turns, which is pretty insane. As well as the fact that like there are no good terrain mons, as mentioned before. Like our best terrain mons are Pichurchin and Weezing until the Tapus come back, which isn't going to be for a while. So that's a big problem. And yeah, this thing just gets amazing coverage with its speed. Like nothing really outspeeds this Pokemon under Sun. Like nothing. And with the new speed mechanic, you can switch in Torkoal and Sleep Powder, and you'll get the speed boost immediately. It got Earth Power this generation, which is kind of insane. So it gets ground coverage with Grass and Poison, which makes fantastic type coverage this generation, especially against
If
Pokemon.
you want to, you could also use Weather Ball and use Rain with it.
That's some
Yep.
Boncoon strat. Go back.
Yeah, a Weather Ball with base 100 fire or water type move, or
So
I
how
guess
many
you could have
how many
rock.
steps up from essentially Vileplume? Because we've seen the Torkoal Vileplume shit. Remember Hamster Mania's like Howlucha team that he posted pretty early on. I know a lot of people were because the rental team, right? They were running that around for a while. I still run into Vileplume a bunch. How many steps above Vileplume are we talking here, in your opinion?
I
Like
mean,
10.
yeah, it's pretty big. I mean, the only thing that Venusaur doesn't get is like after you, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's faster, so you can run a Modest Nature on Venusaur. I don't know if it has.
It
a
has
higher
more
base
bulk.
special attack. It has more bulk in general.
So here's the thing.
Way better
Like, you
speed.
don't get after you, which was one of the nicest parts. But in Pokemon, running good Pokemon is broken. Whenever you can run good Pokemon instead of bad ones, you're just in a much better position overall. And Venusaur is a good Pokemon, while Vileplume is not. And that's just it, right? So Venusaur
Venusaur
has...
is also good without Chlorophyll. Like, it's just a really good Pokemon on its
Yeah,
own.
it's the speed. It's
Like, let's
all
not even
about
talk
extra
about the
speed.
Torkoal. Let's not even talk about Drought with it. It's just really, really good. It's 80 base speed, which is faster than most of the format right now because everything's slow as shit.
Now, do you guys remember back when Megas happened? There was quite a few people running like Charizard, Venusaur, and like both of them or either of them could have held the Mega Stone, so you couldn't really. You had like a really tough time trying to decide how you were going to tear apart the team. Now with Dynamax, they don't have to hold like a dedicated item to Dynamax. Are we going to be seeing? Do you think we'll see more of that? Because I remember together, I know Charizard was setting up the Sun, I guess essentially, but like now Dynamax Charizard can set up the Sun. If it's not the G-Max one. Do you guys think a lot of people will try to use, I guess, a similar strategy as to when they were combined as Megas? Or is it more just going to be like with
go to
Torkoal?
Charizard to set up Sun. I think you'll
Like,
just use
I've
other
got-
Pokemon like
there's
Dragapult
gonna
with
be,
Max
like,
Flare
9
or Ninetales or Torkoal. It's just Charizard's not amazing without really dedicated support like Whimsicott or maybe Grimmsnarl to go for fake tiers for it. So Venusaur probably has better friends, and so does Charizard. Neither of them are BFFs with each other anymore.
Does that sound about right?
I think I think the thing about Venusaur, like, I expect people to try Venusaur Charizard. They have natural synergy. They both appreciate the sun. But I think what people are going to realize eventually is Venusaur is just good. Sleep Powder is just really, really good. And they did a good job of not giving us sleep moves in the start of VGC 2020. That, like, everyone was running Yawn. Like, we live in a world in which they got rid of so many sleep moves that the best sleep move Pokemon had access to was Yawn, and everyone used it anyway because it was so broken.
You're forgetting about Butterfree, my guy.
Yeah, but like Doug said, bad Pokemon suck, and
bad Pokemon are bad.
good Pokemon
they made it such that running sleep moves was really difficult, and people did it anyway on any Pokemon they could put their hands on. Venusaur is good and has good moves, good coverage, and I think it'll just be solid regardless of whether or not it's paired with Charizard.
Now, and I mean,
also like it has busted max moves.
We have like a really limited way of stopping fast sleep, like sleep that's faster than you, right? I mean, at least like Arcanine outsped a lot of stuff that was yawning, so you could safeguard if you wanted to waste, you know, a turn maybe safeguarding into maybe not seeing the first yawn, right? Into like a Togekiss or something, or a Vaporeon, or an Umbreon, or God forbid whatever the heck runs yawn, which is everything.
Sylveon, Hippowdon.
So how much more? Because what are your options in order to basically, besides like I guess Prankster Taunt, but outside of that, are you just going to have to deal with going to sleep? I mean, do you think a lot of people are going to? Because what, you're not going to outspeed it and set up electric terrain real quick, right? Are you, I guess, wheezing fairy terrain? Like, what are the options there to help mitigate that if it does become a big problem?
It's very.
Yeah, I quite respect wheezing for it, actually. It's just like it's a decent mon all around, but just like having Misty terrain for Venusaur is going to be a huge crutch for some teams.
I think just like being forced to run mostly very limited mediocre options that you probably don't want. Like you could run like Tyranitar, Pelipper to help with the weather, but the thing is, most teams with Sun, like Venusaur and Torkoal, they just, well, one, you could just set up Max Flare with a very fast Pokemon, and it doesn't even matter anyway if you switch in your Tyranitar to negate the weather and try to set up like a terrain or knock out Venusaur, which probably carrying Sash anyway, so it doesn't matter. The fact is they can just hard switch out into Torkoal, and usually like they'll be mixed. Usually, like I think Sun teams we see commonly have like Trick Room stuff, so they could just double out on a Torkoal. So most likely your switch out is going to go first. So Torkoal is going to always get its weather up basically. And you have very few options. Like Whimsicott, Prankster, Safeguard, and Taunt are probably your best options. But even then, it's still mediocre, and most flying types, you know, have the coverage you want to handle Venusaur. Of course, there are some options to help. I think like a safety goggles could pick up again, like on Togekiss or maybe even Corviknight, for instance. I think those Pokemon might help. Of course, they don't help against Torkoal, but like it's probably one of the best ways to handle it. I think safety goggles is probably going to be something that might be a staple now.
Cool. And I want to make sure we get to Incineroar before, because I know James, you got to go at 2 for class and stuff. So let's.
I can go at 2:15.
Okay, cool. Okay, does anybody have like anything else they really want to say about Venusaur? Should we move on to?
Real quick, one thing you can do is set up your own terrains. I know that like because of weather, the counterplay is limited, but you can run Lumberry, Dragapult, Lumberry, Excadrill, both of which I know have been seeing some usage already. Lumberry, Tyranitar, stuff like that. You can fake out the Venusaur with Incineroar and set up electric terrain with your Pokemon. If Dragapult has Thunderbolt, you can fake out, go for Thunderbolt. You can set Misty terrain with certain Pokemon. So there are definitely some counterplay options, but it's not as many as you would like.
It's going to cripple team building in the sense that you need to have some kind of an answer to it, because otherwise it can run through your team. So now all of a sudden you have to fit in something that maybe ultimately you kind of didn't want. Otherwise, in your team of 6, right? Is that what we're saying? Kind of the same way Dracovish, if you have 0 way to deal with it, you're just gonna get Vicious Rend all the way through your squad. You kind of like need to like always think like at the back of your head, okay, fast now fast sleep powder is that much more prevalent. I need a consistent way of dealing with it, right? Or to just hope it misses, basically. Like, oh shit, maybe he'll miss, and like just go from there.
Sleep powder is like a 50-50, but busted.
The best way to beat going to sleep is just waking up.
Man, okay, well there we go.
Wake up, man. Just wake up. What's so hard about this? Like, I'm just telling you.
Winners hit 1 turn sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried that. I tried.
Not just about one turn.
You're giving me flashbacks.
John, I tried that at my MSS 2 days ago.
How'd it go?
My Togekiss stayed asleep 3 turns for all 3 games.
Oh.
No, you just gotta wake up. You're not trying hard enough.
It was worse.
Why does that happen for me? Why don't I get those long
It was
sleeps?
even worse. I was losing to Scope Lens Charizard that kept critting me.
Huge, dude. Huge. Oh my god.
Are you sure you got 3rd at Worlds? Like, you're supposed good players get
You're
lucky.
good. Like, if you're good, you just wake up, right?
Champions wake up, dude. I don't know what else to say.
Champions dodged sleep powder, but I'm pretty sure it was a wide lens on the Vileplume.
That's so terrible. All right, let's go. Then let's talk about Incineroar, because I think that's the big one on everybody's mind, whether justified or not. Incineroar kind of was a very strong presence in a good couple formats that it was featured in, due to a lot of tools that it got right. It's a mixture of its typing, access to fake out, intimidate, of course. You were able to U-turn to get better positioning, and in fact, the slower U-turn sets you up for a lot of nice counterplay on your opponent after, because you wouldn't have to switch into something frail that would just die. Its introduction back here, I know a lot of people are very, very worried. Are they justified in being worried? Because there are a lot of things here. It does get access now to Parting Shot. Fake out is a little bit weaker. There are other, intimidators here, but there aren't like a ton. Like, is this going to be as big of a deal as it's being made out to be?
I think Incineroar is a massive deal. It's not an entirely bad thing, though. I have kind of changed on this since we first heard about it, but I think Incineroar does do a lot of positive things for the metagame. Personally, I was kind of just excited to play without it for a year, though, because we'd been playing with it for the entirety of 2 years, and it was okay, now we have to work with slightly weaker intimidates like Arcanine, kind of just make do and use different Pokemon. But now that Incineroar is back, it's Arcanine kind of going to disappear. So we're just going to be using the same Pokemon we always are, assuming the next 2 formats are national dexes. It would have been 5 years of Incineroar in a row, and that's kind of annoying. I'm a little bit disappointed they gave it Parting Shot too, because it's just such a straight upgrade from U-turn for it. I think it's kind of like Fake Out Gothitelle. It's just why they need to give it a move that good. I don't know. Incineroar is such a mixed bag. I'm kind of excited to play with it, kind of worried about it at the same time. A lot of feelings, a lot of strong feelings.
Any echoed sentiment there, or anything you guys disagree with? What do you guys...
So I hadn't thought about what it's like to play with Incineroar for a bunch of years in a row, and it was kind of nice to have, for example, in 2016, we didn't get to use, no one really wanted to use Landorus Therian, and then 2017, Landorus was banned, and so we got a chance to use Garchomp again. It was really fun getting to use these different Pokemon that don't always get a chance to shine in national dex formats, because I love Landorus. Controversial opinion, I really enjoy using Landorus. It's nice to use strong Pokemon that do strong things, but it's also nice to use weak Pokemon that do strong things, but when you can use them, even though you can't use them when the stronger Pokemon are allowed. So I liked Arcanine. Arcanine 2017 was fun, but I think Incineroar is healthy in the sense that it makes it so that better players win more often. I think Incineroar, might restrict building a little bit, because Incineroar is just such a straight upgrade from Arcanine in so many ways. But the ability to manage your game states and the long-term game planning around, how often can I switch my Incineroar in, when will, do I get this skillful, do I go for the U-turn here on this prediction, or do I go for the fake out? I think that it raises the consistency of gameplay and the depth of gameplay in a way that, even if we see Cat for a really long time, I enjoy what it does.
And guys, I know the thing messed up a little bit, Chup. Our resident Smash player DC'd on us. Big surprise. But when he comes back in, it'll get fixed. So just take Enosh's left ear at face value and James's right eye, and we'll. Oh, dude, it's none of these guys' fault. All right, so when we're talking here, back when Incineroar was reaching 80% team presence or something, or top cut presence, 90%. In that format, it was almost the thing that you you almost always started with, do I want Incineroar on this team? Like, unless you had like a very good reason to like not put it there, it was like a pretty good, like, let's start here kind of a thing. You know, maybe you start with your main idea. Maybe you wanted to try, you know, something funky, but then like Incineroar was usually like the third thing you put on that team because it was so solid. Are we talking about the same kind of idea here? Now, like, Fake Out's a little bit worse, right? Because you don't want to Fake Out into the Dynamax turn, but it's still really good. Dark type, can't get prankstered. I think he's calling. I think he's calling us. Is he calling us? I hear him calling. Here, let me see if I can't add him back here.
No, Chuppa said he had to go meet someone.
Oh, really? Okay, I couldn't read this. I didn't see that. Well, it's.
No, dude, Chuppa's gone.
Oh, it's fucked. Oh, it's fucked. Okay, let me try to fix this.
He let us know 15 minutes ago that he had to leave.
Oh, I can't read the thing. Because if I change the Discord thing, then it does this.
Yeah, totally fair.
I'll emergency fix. It's all good. It's a big.
All right, so
we're talking about. Yes. I still want to talk about, is Incineroar is it going to be, hey, I'm starting a team build, let me toss on Incineroar, or is it going to be like, still, are you going to get a big decision between, hey, I want the faster Snarl, I need the safeguard, Arcanine's kind of my go-to, or I can just run a water type Intimidator and Gyarados. Yeah. What are we feeling as far as that level of prevalence potentially? Because obviously it's hard to tell, but when you're starting a new format with Incineroar on it, are you going to be putting it on like second on your team? Is this like the first thing you're putting on there, or is it not that important still?
So like the big thing with Incineroar was when there's something broken, Incineroar just makes it even more broken. Like you saw Xerneas last year. Well, you had Xerneas was pretty busted. You used that with Incineroar, now Xerneas had an easier way to become busted. Gengar, well, Incineroar made that a bit more busted. Rayquaza with Swords Dance, thank you, John. Incineroar made it a bit more busted. Like, there were so many things that just Incineroar helped make them stronger. Right now, it's a little bit different. Everything's just really strong on its own, and Fake Out doesn't really help as much. Intimidate doesn't slow down as many things. Incineroar's just really good, but it's also a liability. I remember one game on stream at the mid-season yesterday, there was a Fake Out into a Dynamax Pokemon. Game 1, Game 2, and Game 3. It happens again and again and again. People just don't know what they're doing with Fake Out. They kind of whiff it a lot, and Incineroar is really good, but doesn't... It's a liability at the same time, especially because Fire-type is weak to a ton of things, and if you Dynamax your Incineroar, you're basically giving up the game. That sums up a lot of it. It's really good. Arcanine does one thing that it doesn't. Fast Snarl is still really strong. Let's keep that in mind. Just Incineroar is going to be used a lot, and the more Incineroar is used, the more Incineroar you see used against Incineroar, because Incineroar beats Incineroar.
So you feel pretty confident in the fact that it's going to act similar to Whimsicott, where it's not going to be Dynamaxing on your team unless you're kind of throwing the game. Most of the time, obviously not in every scenario, but in most of the scenarios, you think Dynamaxing it is just not really what it's going to be doing. I think it's more just there for the rotational support. Okay.
So I think that Fake Out is generally a good thing to have in Pokemon. We had Hitmontop in 2013, Kangaskhan for quite a while, which is a bit too strong. But I feel like every time we have Fake Out, it enables different types of strategies to be viable. I think that this format, and I could be wrong, was trending towards a really aggressive fake tiers part of the metagame, where you just, pile on as much damage as you can, prankster fake tiers, one shot, and try and, just get really fast damage trades. I think Incineroar really helps moderate that type of playstyle, because it means that support Pokemon aren't automatically given a free turn. The existence of Fake Out allows people to, play around it, maybe slow the game down a little. I like it when VGC games take a little bit longer. That's just me. I don't think Incineroar is mandatory. I think that a lot of teams that didn't run Arcanine won't want to run Incineroar, because I think offense is still just good. You can just do a lot of damage with your Pokemon and decide that you're going to make things go away, as opposed to, stalling around with Fake Out. But Fake Out is important to combat Fake Out, so you might have to add Incineroar to beat other Incineroar.
I think Incineroar is pretty much a Pokemon that is... I think it's a Pokemon that most players were like, you know, some were happy to see, or some were obviously the opposite. But I think most players were actually like in the middle of it. Didn't matter if Incineroar came back. It's always nice. So a lot of teams don't have Ghost resist. Ghost is like a pretty big typing in this generation offensively. Like there's really not many resists. Like Tyranitar is one of the few Ghost resists. There like no normal types people really use. So I think it is welcoming. I think it's really welcoming for Incineroar to come back just for that Ghost typing. I think it's just really nice. Intimidate's always a nice ability, and its utility is always nice. You had that parting shot U-turn with Intimidate and Fake Out. I don't think it's like, even though it's had high usage, I think it's had a high usage, which, you know, some might argue, oh, and that's probably why people complain about Incineroar, but it's not. High usage does not equal unhealthy, and the fact is that Incineroar is just a Pokemon that isn't like high usage for like broken stats. It's not high usage for crazy damage output. It does help fix teams that, you know, appreciate those tools. Like I think Perish Trap, for instance, back in 2018, why I made Gengar really good. It's great resist and immunities. It's great typing in general. I think it's really good as a support Pokemon, and I think it makes a lot of teams just stronger in this generation as well. I think some of the like Lapras Perish stuff can come back. I think like a lot of teams can benefit from Incineroar. Standard can benefit from Incineroar for sure, like Togekiss, Dragapult, Excadrill stuff. But I don't think it's like a problem unhealthy wise. I think it's all right. I think for me, it was just like, it didn't matter if Incineroar came back. It was going to be fine with or without it. It's just like whatever for me, I think, personally.
Perfect. And do you guys think, because technically our metagame is dominated by, right, usage percentage wise, overwhelmingly Togekiss. We talked about Arcanine, Dragapult. Gyarados is actually on there. Tyranitar's on there. Gastron's actually on there. Are any of these guys going to be, are these changes going to, you think, kick any of these really, really popular top 10 kind of Pokemon out of their dominance? Or do you think we're basically looking at, you know, the same ice cream flavor with just like some sprinkles? You know, are we changing ice cream flavors here, or are we adding a topping?
I think that Venusaur kind of messes them up a bit. Like, you go look at its individual matchup against a lot of these Pokemon, it's going to go quiet them down a bit. But it also likes their support, so who the hell knows?
Tough call.
I don't think I would find it very tough to run Arcanine after Incineroar gets released. Like, you get Fast Snarl, and maybe that's worth doing, but when the main special... Okay, no, there actually is a big niche for Arcanine, because Arcanine can help you defeat Duraludon, which Incineroar really can't. Because Arcanine can outspeed Duraludon and potentially snarl it, whereas Incineroar just sits there and gets one shot. I think that Arcanine is the Pokemon I expect to drop a lot out of any of them, because it directly conflicts with one of the Pokemon that already exist. But I think any predictions I make will probably be irrelevant after a few weeks up to a month of playing, because metagames shift so quickly when people play them. And, you know, I can make as many predictions as I want, but it's way easier to make predictions when you're watching people on ladder than when you're just, you know, sitting in your room thinking.
Right. James?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So I was basically asking, with these introduction of and Series 3 here, are we talking about a huge like shift in what we're going to be seeing in what's really, really popular? Do you think any of them are going to get replaced? And I mentioned a couple of the Pokemon that are top 10 in usage right now, such as Togekiss, Dragapult, Arcanine, Gastrodon, Gyarados, Grimmsnarl's on there, Tyranitar's on there. Do you think anything here is going to have a big enough impact to kind of kick that out and make it look kind of like a different kind of a metagame? Or is this just going to be like, now we have the same stuff plus, like, you know, a handful more options that aren't really going to be dominating anything?
I think it's more like the handful of options. I think maybe Arcanine, like John said, would maybe decrease a bit, but otherwise I think pretty much everything will be staying the same. I think the only thing that will probably go down a lot would be Vileplume. I don't know where it is on usage stats though, but like I think that's like the only Pokemon that would definitely drop down. But otherwise, I think a lot of these teams will appreciate Incineroar for sure, and I think Incineroar is going to climb up for sure, but I feel like pretty much it's going to be the same top 10 regardless.
Perfect. So I know you got to get out of here in 4 minutes. I asked some questions from the chat real quick. If you guys don't mind helping me answer them. Which of the Gmax Pokemon that are not legal yet are you guys most excited to use? That's from Swede PS4. Lapras?
Lapras.
Colossal's going to be fun.
Lapras, Colossal, Flapple actually is something I want to have some fun with.
Oh no, how dare you.
Center of Gravity is kind of sick with Hypnosis.
I know, you're evil.
Wait.
That's
It doesn't
exactly
set
what
up
I
gravity,
meant.
right? It sets up Sweet Scent, I thought.
Which is
No.
the same thing.
Yeah.
No, it's not the same thing because
Okay,
gravity
Dragon
boosts...
Ball's fine against it.
No, because gravity boosts Grab Apple.
Oh wait, I thought that's what it was supposed to do. I thought it set up Gravity.
No, I thought it does it set
No,
up gravity?
Orbeetle
Does it
sets
just...
up gravity.
Yeah, Gmax Orbeetle sets up gravity. Flapple only reduces evasive.
That's such a
Appleton is kind of cute because you can use Appleton, which is aromatherapy, and then you can put rest on some.
It's not good enough.
Oh, it's terrible, but it
That's
could work
so
in
bad.
doubles OU and be hilarious.
I'm not gonna use it, dude.
Oh, I know you're not.
You're not
I
gonna
might.
make me. You can't. No, you.
Okay, wait, I'm gonna hop in here. I'm gonna hop in here.
Use apple acid and use this. This sounds hilarious.
I'm gonna hop in here real quick. Sideways asks, do you guys think that there are any Pokemon that are currently in the metagame that are going to see a much higher boosted usage thanks to being able to partner with anything that's now being introduced? Off the top of your head, I guess it's probably a hard pickup. But do you think that anything that we currently have that isn't really used that much is getting a huge benefit by having one of these guys that is being added as a partner or on the team?
I got one thing. It's Ninetales. Normal Ninetales is gonna go up in usage. It works great with Venusaur, and it can just do a lot off that. And if we get Solar Power Charizard, that's gonna make it even more terrifying.
I think Conkeldurr might get more usage. It's so Kartana was like okay in VGC 17, but it got a lot better in 18 because the main fire type it had to deal with was suddenly weak to fighting. And so I think that, when Conkeldurr no longer has to deal with the main Intimidator being resistant, being neutral to fighting, but is weak to fighting, Conkeldurr might get quite a bit better.
I think anything that benefits from Incineroar, Parishmon, Snorlax, potentially setup stuff, and even maybe Hawlucha. I think Hawlucha is probably one of the few Pokemon that could actually be like really good against Venusaur now that I think about it, and the Incineroar.
Nice. Someone actually said they tried out the Slowpoke Torkoal thing while they were listening, and they won 4 out of 5 games on Showdown. So
Yeah, you did.
Look what happened, dude. You ruined it. It's all fucked. And one other question. Heriberto wants to know opinions on Parish Trap viability with the addition of Incineroar. What do you guys think? You think that's going to have any kind of more usage than it's currently got right now?
Oh, that's really big. Having Intimidating Fake Out is nice. Like, they run him on top, but like the fact is you could U-turn out in a Shadow Tag, and most likely Incineroar is going to be running mint speed on those Parish teams, and you can U-turn back in your Shadow Tag user, especially since Gothitelle is like, unless you're running Gothorita with double Shadow Tag like that, there's no Gengar anymore, so it's pretty important to have that Shadow Tag overall if you want to run Parish. So yeah, Incineroar is definitely going to make that much more viable than it was previously.
I think.
Yeah, go on.
I think that Incineroar makes the strategy stronger, but also makes the counterplay stronger. One thing that Parish Trap really has a problem with is when it faces 2 Pokemon that don't really care. So one thing that was really scary in 2018 was Landorus Coco, because you could just Volt Switch out and U-turn out at the same time and do a ton of damage until then. So I think that, while the strategy itself becomes stronger, the counterplay in just leading Dragapult Incineroar, I think, becomes way stronger. So I'm not sure it's their team. I'm going to hold off judgment on it.
And my thoughts kind of echo a bit of John's, but I think that Parish is not the right thing to focus on when you think about Incineroar. The timer's going to be messed up. Like, you need to go be very concerned about games just not ending, because Incineroar is going to just slow down the game at that extra turn or two, and we're not going to actually have our games end. If that happens, that's what's going to be the worst part about it.
Dude, I'm excited. Dude, I'm excited. I love Timer.
Are you
John, I hate you right now.
The only person... dude, I'm so
dude,
excited.
the last timer on...
It's really hard to play it well. You need to... good players play Timer well, but it also just sucks to be on the receiving end of it, and it's not a really fun mechanic to deal with because you can't opt out of it. One person decides to opt into it, and now both players have to deal with it.
All right, I got to interject here, James. I think you got to go, right? So we'll call this
I got like 5 minutes.
Yeah, like 5 minutes. Okay, perfect. Because I saw somebody. What do you guys think about like copycat life part? Because people used to do that with a Riolu, right? And then you could trick room, right, with priority if they D-max protect. Is that actually gonna be something, or is that kind of still? Because it used to be like, well, now I have a Riolu on my team though, but like, at the same time, is that gonna be anything? Is that gonna be garbage?
One of my friends really enjoys watching this one Japanese player. I think his name is Yuki Tom. And I know that Yuki has been running a team with, I think it might be like Surf Spam, and it has a Jellicent, and maybe you can max the Jellicent. And I think he has matchup tech Liepard with Copycat. It's not good. But the fact that something's good, the fact that something's not good doesn't mean it's not usable. It's one move slot that might completely change your matchups. So I think that, it's not a strategy that you can have, but it's a tech option you can employ in matchups.
Do you guys think that was
VGC?
Was that the intended? Do you think that was the intended use of, like, did they think when they were coding it like it should work like that, or do you think it was an accident that just is like, oh, okay, yeah, it's here? Because like when someone brought it up to me, I was like, no way, that's wild. And then like it totally works like that, but like I understand why, but I don't know if it was on purpose.
So it's actually somewhat consistent with other mechanics. If you encore a Dynamax Pokemon just after Dynamax ends, they get encored into the that they use.
Oh, wait, you broke up. Say that last. If you encore them on the last turn, Dynamax ends.
So if you encore them after Dynamax ends, let's say they used Phantom Force on the last turn of Dynamax as Max Phantasm, and I encore my opponent's Dragapult just after it finishes maxing, it will lock them into Phantom Force.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So the game's Dynamax Pokemon are immune to encore when they're Dynamax. But the game seems to store the base moves of the max moves as something that they're keeping track of. So I don't think it's intentional, but it's definitely, I can see why it's happening.
Gotcha. That's neat insight, actually, because I didn't know that's how that worked. But I guess that makes sense then. It's kind of cool. Maybe it'll be used, because at least you're not a Riolu anymore, unless Riolu was like really good. I just never used it. If anybody in the chat has any last minute questions, or if anybody here has anything last minute they want to say, I really appreciate you guys being here so much. It was a lot of fun, and maybe we can do this again sometime. But if you guys want to just last minute thoughts or just whatever, shout out your channel if you want to, or your Twitter, that's fine too.
I'm gonna say one opinion, which is pretty big, I think. Since they allowed all this new stuff with the starters, there's something that some people are very concerned about, including me, and that's, the DLCs. We got the Isle of Armor coming in June 2020, and that's the month of Japan and Nationals and US Nationals. I don't think they're going to change the rules for June specifically, but if they make rule changes, like they drew Pokedex numbers right out, the original rule set was like the Galar Pokedex numbers 1, 2, I think it's like 397 or something like that.
Yep.
The fact is that if these DLCs are applied to something like Worlds, for instance, it's a completely different metagame, because we get like 200 new Pokemon, and since they already proved that they don't really care about Pokedex numbers right now, I think that's something that's super concerning.
That's a good point.
There's Galarian Slowpoke right now, and he's a DLC Pokemon.
He's popping off on Showdown, apparently.
Pay to win, dude. One thing I'm worried about is when that happens, if what James is talking about happens, is Amoonguss. So I don't know if you guys have looked at the moveset distribution for all the new Pokemon. But Alex, do you know what the new move? Do you know the new moves Amoonguss gets?
Dude, no, not me. I don't.
It gets pollen.
Oh my god. Wait, that's sick. That's monstrous, actually.
So you can run Amoonguss with Spore, Rage Powder, Heal Pulse, has Pollen Puff that also does damage to your opponent.
That's insane. What's its BP is super. It's like pretty big
It's
move,
90.
isn't it? Yeah. What the fuck?
It's 90.
Isn't it a bug type move though? So it's not.
It's a bug type move. It's a bug type move.
But still,
So it's not stat.
but the usability here, though. I mean, like, think about it, right? Like, there's so much.
No,
there's actually so much potential in that.
I'm looking forward to the post Amoonguss metagame where everyone has Incineroar Amoonguss on their team and matches end 4-4 because everyone just switches and parting shots and heals all their Pokemon back up to full with their Amoonguss.
Jesus.
And everything's asleep and then the game ends.
Yeah, because you can just.
That's what I'm
get in
looking
prison?
forward to.
Wait, does Amoonguss get in prison?
No.
Togekiss gets in prison. You can imprison other Togekiss if they don't D-max it. But yeah, I don't know if Amoonguss. That's wild though, because then you still have Regenerator or whatever on Amoonguss. So you're like healing the Amoonguss by switching it, right? And then like you can Pollen Puff your shit, and you're like nothing will ever die, dude. And then
Yeah, so I'm really hyped for that. I think
that's insane. What do you think?
All right, I've got to get going.
Okay, he's got to go.
Now. So before I go, I want to go and say y'all should go and subscribe to JamesBaek on his YouTube, follow him on his Twitter, follow John on his Twitter, follow me on my Twitter, and also don't forget, if you have Twitch Prime, go use it on this channel if you like this content, because Alex Ogloza really needs to feed.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
All right, peace out.
All right, thank you, Enosh. Hey, thank you, everybody else. It's gonna fuck up my thing again. Go ahead. Yeah, of course.
Quick thing.
Of course, go ahead. I'll try to save this.
So this shirt was actually made by one of your mods, Blaze.
Blaze kicked.
And you can support her art on Patreon. She makes stickers, and they're really cute. And she also made this T-shirt. It's a Gegnar.
That's actually really
You
sick.
can buy that on Teespring.
She's very talented.
I'm a huge fan. Yeah, she's really awesome. I don't think she's still a mod, but she doesn't come.
She's VIP. She's VIP.
I'll let her know.
All right, thank you guys so much. Thank you, James. I know you were tough on time. I was a little late, so thank you guys for putting up with my my lateness, and maybe some other time. Don't forget to check these guys out. Subscribe to their Twitter, and I'm gonna be battling some stuff on the Switch right now. But you guys have a great day.
Galarian Slowpoke.
I'm not gonna be running that. Well, we'll see. Oh, maybe not. I'm not trying to ruin the metagame just yet. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll be over in the real thing. Yeah, so I'll see you guys later. Okay.
All right.
Bye bye.
Thanks so much for having us, Alex.
Yeah, for sure, man.
See you later.